Catholic Chautauqua did not have was a series of very charismatic and capable leaders that when they entered each of these eras, where there was competition, there was money, problems with money, problems with income, they had a leader that somehow reacted to that way in a way that was very, very successful. In fact, I read that there's actually 4 stages to the development of the Methodist Chautauqua. There was the founding between 1875 and 1925, the change of direction in 1925 to 1936, the decline in 1936 to 1970. So the Methodist Chautauqua had a bit of a rough time in the Depression and afterwards. And then in 1970 to the present, which was the Renaissance period, when it kind of refurbished itself and regrew. Now the founding, it's interesting about the founding, because we already talked about the founding, and you notice that in both cases, the Catholic Chautauqua and the Methodist Chautauqua, you've got these concerned, dynamic individuals. In the Methodist Chautauqua, you've got Vincent and you've got Miller. In the Catholic Chautauqua, you've got Laughlin and Moser. And then the Kennedy comes along too. So you've got, at the very beginning, you've got these dynamic men who are charismatic and energetic and have these plans, and they create these institutions. What happens afterwards is the Methodist Chautauqua continues to have these figures who are very effective. In the second era, the change of direction era, there was a president named Victor Bester, and he built in Chautauqua a reaction to all that changing technology, radios, phonographs, movies, and so forth. He brought in, for instance, the New York Symphony to play at the Methodist Chautauqua, and other orchestras too. I saw a list of them. I didn't know what any of them were, but apparently they were very popular at the time. Something called the Victor Herbert's Orchestra. Don't know what that is, but apparently it was very, very good at the time. And even the Russian Symphony came. He decided to have a summer arts festival that would bring people in. He brought the opera in. He brought drama in by virtue of making a contract with the Cleveland Playhouse. Cleveland Playhouse was going to the Methodist Chautauqua. So there was this ability to counteract these technological movements that somehow would have drained the pocketbook of the Methodist Chautauqua. Now, interesting though, as effective as Bester was, by 1929, it's still in debt. $500,000, which is almost $500,000. See, that was a joke. It's the same thing. Yeah. You know, if I have to explain all these things to you, it's not going to work. All right. So they were in debt, $500,000. In fact, by 1933, they're in debt $700,000. So they're about to close down. They're about to go bankrupt. And what do we have come on the scene? Another effective, charismatic guy whose name is Hazlitt. And Hazlitt does a good job of raising money. He, what was going on is, wait, not Hazlitt.
Yeah, he was the chair of the board committee.
That's right. He was the chair of the committee. That's right. Of the committee, the reorganization committee when they were going into bankruptcy. That's right. He was a Chautauquan. He was a dedicated Chautauquan. He was from Pittsburgh, but we'll forgive him for that. He was a lawyer. We'll forgive him for that too. But he was very, very clever in developing fundraising. One thing that he did was to sell land to the homeowners. There was this practice that they had, and I think we're familiar with it here at Lakeside, where you don't own the land. You have a lease, a 99-year lease on the land. Well, what Hazlitt does is he offers the homeowners deeds for their land at 20% of the assessed value of the land. Well, that brings in a lot of money. He also sells buildings and benches and classrooms and so forth to rich people that want to give donations. Now, they don't actually get the building, they don't get the bench, they don't get, what they get is a plaque on the building or a plaque on the bench. And of course, this brings in a lot of money too. So it's very successful to stave off the collapse. But even that, by 1970, they're still $600,000 in debt. And they're about, again, to go under. And then they get a new president, a guy by the name of Hess, And Hess develops the Second Century Campaign in 1979. He wants to one thing he has to do is salvage the major buildings which are collapsing. And he does a very clever thing. He decides, okay, we've never taken federal funds, but we're going to do it now. And at this time, you had the birth of the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts. And they get grants from these institutions. And getting a grant from an institution like the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts, you get a certain amount of money, but you have to get matching funds. You have to get matching funds from private donors. And which you would say, well, it's just back to ground zero, because they still have to get donations from rich philanthropists. But if you go to the philanthropists and say, look, the federal government already gave us $100,000, all we need is another $200,000, well, it's more likely that they're going to donate, and that is what happened. My theory is that, I think you can guess what the theory is that the Methodist Chautauqua had the right people at the right time to deal with the crisis. And even those guys, as good as they were, still just kept their head above water, and barely, until the Renaissance occurs in the modern era. And apparently, the Catholic Chautauqua had none of this. After the founding, we get these three charismatic guys who don't seem to have it anymore. At least at this point, I could find no record of it. So that's my theory, that that's what happened with the Catholic Chautauqua. Now, I want to talk about one other thing, and that is the CLSC and the Catholic reading unions. Now, there is a temptation to say that there are two major Catholic reading unions or Catholic reading circles. One was called the Columbia Reading Circle, the other was the Catholic Education Circle, or Union. Columbia Reading Union and Catholic Education Union. Now the temptation, I think, is to say that these reading unions, these reading circles, were created in reaction to the CLSC. But I didn't think this didn't really give a great deal of credit to the Catholic Church's investment in education. Because the Catholic Church has always been invested in education. So I did a little research, and I found out that the first reading circle was proposed, and listen to this, by St. Philip Neri. And St. Philip Neri died in 1595. Now that not only predates the CLSC, that predates the Methodist Church. So we got to beat on that, okay?
By 200 years.
By 200 years, yeah, that's right. By 200 years, the first reading circle was appointed by a guy who becomes a saint. How can you beat that? Okay? So I think we have you beat on the reading circles. Now, I'm being a little facetious there. There was another one that was established by Frederick Osman in the 19th century, and he died in 1853, so even that was before the Methodist CLSC. It was called the Conference of Charity. That was his reading circle. But it kind of morphed into the St. Vincent de Paul Society and became that. And of course their reading was gone at that point because they were doing things like helping the poor. So that reading circle kind of faded away. There were a couple of reading circles that were established in, there was one in Brooklyn called the Young Men's Catholic Literary Association of the Church of the Assumption in Brooklyn. That was the name of it. It was a pretty long name, but that's what it's called. It was formed in 1858. Okay, now we predate the CLSC by 15 years. And there was one formed in Chicago called the Catholic Union Library Association. And there was one in Boston called the Young Men's Catholic Association. The problem with these is, these are not really like the CLSC. Because, one thing, they were self-contained, they were small. And they lasted only as long as the leader. So you had a charismatic priest in the Church of the Assumption in Brooklyn, decides to form a reading circle. It lasts as long as he does. He's transferred to another church and goes away. So these things really, you really can't say that they're like the CLSC. So I'm running out of options now. Okay, I'm running out of options. I'm thinking I'm going to have to go back to St. Philip Neri, go back to the 16th century. Then I find out that remember the NUYMCA? The NUYMCA himself was a reading circle. I didn't realize that. So now I find it's a reading circle. Not only was it a reading circle, but it was a union of all other reading circles. That's why it's called the National Union of Young Men's Catholic Associations. So the union coordinates all these little ones that are cropping up and then failing, cropping up and then failing. What they do is you join their union and you get lesson plans, you get reading books, you get advice on how to develop lectures and how to do teaching and so forth. So really what you got then is sort of a CLSC, okay? So I'm happy about that. Except that, to be honest, it's certainly, you know what it's called? It's called the Young Men's Catholic Literary Association of the Church of the Assumption. No, that was the other one. It's called the National Union of Young Men's Catholic Association. Young Men's. Okay. It clearly doesn't have that outreach to include those people that weren't ordinarily allowed to go or had the opportunity to go to higher education. So it doesn't have that outreach that the CLSC had. So, what is the conclusion I have to come to? I have to come to the conclusion that the Methodists beat us again, that in fact, the CLSC in conception, in idealism, in structure, in completeness, in outreach, trumps the, sorry for the word, the National Union of Young Men's Catholic Associations. So, again, the Methodists had the first Chautauqua, the Methodists had the first CLSC. Now, the Catholics did establish the Catholic Education Union, which was much more closely modeled after the CLSC. It had reading lists, required readings, it had graduation procedures and so forth. But the problem is, that wasn't established until I think 1892, and so I guess again the Methodists win. Okay. I'm almost done. When I was doing my research, I just so you know, I just want you to know, I came across this little pamphlet, which is the Word of Life, a statement on Revelation and Faith. It's a report of the Joint Commission for Dialogue between the Catholic Church and the World Methodist Council. So, today, everything is copacetic. Catholics and Methodists get together. So I wanted to know that I know that, and I'm proud of that, and you should be too. And I guess that puts the topper on my presentation today. End of speech.
I cannot imagine the hours that Paul has put into the research for this, because you can't just open and type in Catholic Chautauqua and get this kind of information in one easy swoop. So he has added immensely to my understanding of Catholic Chautauqua. I knew one existed. I had no idea where, when, any of that, the leadership. Paul, thank you so much for what you've added. And now I have the mic ready for questions that people might have. Dave.
You probably know more about this than I do, but the anti-Catholic heritage of the United States is long, and there was a major party for a few years in the 1850s called the Know Nothing Party. I guess the real name was the American Party, but Millard Fillmore ran for president as the Know Nothing American Party in 1856. He did not win. Of course, he had previously been president. But the Know Nothing motto was against rum and Romanism. So that's...
Yes, I remember that. I remember that. I didn't come across that.
I did not vote for Millard in 1856.
Yeah, well, actually, the anti-Catholicism goes back to the founding of the original colonies. I mean, they were
Maryland is a Catholic.
Right, exactly. In fact, there was such a wave of anti-Catholic sentiment at that time that it morphed into anti-Episcopalian Because the Episcopalian Church was so close to the Catholic Church, it was, well, you're probably the same bed as the Catholics, and so it was widespread, it was widespread. That's
And
true.
it didn't end then either. Remember in 1960, there was someone who was running for president who was a Catholic, and there was a very large uproar against that.
That's true, and we haven't had another Catholic president since, right? Candidates for president. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the question is, before you write your book on the Catholic Chautauquas, yeah, that's a joke.
You see what it is when you have to explain it?
Yeah,
It's just,
right.
it doesn't work.
I'll
Yeah.
publish it.
But anyway, you know, there was a Catholic Chautauqua in Emmitsburg. Well, that's
Right.
where Mount St. Mary's is,
Okay.
and Milwaukee, of course, Marquette.
Uh-huh.
So if you go to those schools, I wonder if they would have any information about the Catholic Chautauquas.
Okay, that's I never, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. Yeah. Thank you.
Susan, your opportunities for travel. Someone else? Yes.
I'm just wondering why the Catholic Chautauqua didn't replicate the efforts